Hello, and welcome to this American History podcast titled Native American Cultures. In this podcast, we'll cover United States geographic regions and the Native Americans that inhabited these regions. So, by the end of this podcast, you should understand that there were several different Native American populations in the present day United States with very diverse lifestyles. You should also be able to explain how those lifestyles were developed in accordance with the environments in which these populations lived. So basically, answer the question of how did Native Americans of 8 different cultural regions adapt to their environments? So let's get started. So the first thing that we need to look at is what exactly is an environment? So an environment includes all of the physical surroundings of a place. So that would include the land, water, animals, plants, and climate. And within any environment, we are going to find natural resources. Natural resources are useful materials found in nature like water, vegetation, plants, animals, and minerals. And then different groups of people that live in different geographic regions have their own cultures. But what is culture? Culture is a people's way of life, whether that's their beliefs, their customs, the foods they eat, their dwellings, the type of clothing they wear. And we'll find that all of that is influenced and determined by geography, by the environment, so by the natural resources they have access to. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the 8 different cultural regions of the United States and the Native Americans that live in those areas. I just wanted to point out before we talk about these cultural regions that although we talk about only 8 regions, there were actually 156 very distinct ethnic groups among Native American populations in the United States. So even though the Native American population is divided into 8 regions, we're talking about a much more diverse population of people that really do have their own distinct cultures. So the first region that we're going to look at is the Arctic and the subarctic, which is what you see here. This region is far north in modern-day Canada and Alaska. Here we see tribes subsist or survive entirely on hunting and fishing and gathering whatever they can. The reason they do this is because they live in an environment that is not hospitable to agriculture. The climate makes crop production impossible. So when we go south, we'll see a lot more farming. We'll also see hunting, gathering, and fishing in those areas, but not as exclusively as the Arctic and subarctic. And the tribes that lived and continue to live in this area are the Inuit and the Aleut, among others. And what you see in this picture is an Eskimo seal hunter. Seals are plentiful in the Arctic, and they are a source of meat, a source of fat, and a source of protein. These Native American tribes ate a diet that was 75% fat. Now, if somebody tries to eat that type of diet here, it will kill them, which a lot of people do eat that type of diet, but it's not good. And if you live in a warm climate, that type of diet is really unhealthy for you. But you go up there, you're burning so many calories just to exist that it works for them. You can eat a diet that would kill somebody in a milder climate. So their lifestyle is a lot different than the Indians in the Southeast and Southwest. And this right here is a plate of seal meat. Okay, so it's time to fill in some of our notes. You should have this paper pictured right here and something to write with. Okay, so you might want to try to pause the podcast here so that you can copy in the notes that are here for you. So you're going to write in the box that people in the Arctic and subarctic region, their unique characteristics is that they hunt, gather, and fish for their food. So pause the video for just a minute and get that written down in your podcast notes. Okay, so the next region that we're going to look at is the Northwest Coast, located right here. So the Northwest Coast includes part of Canada and then part of the states of Washington, Idaho, and parts of Oregon. So this region has really cold winters and cool summers, and they get a lot of rain up there. So there are dense forests and lots of trees. And the coastline provides a lot of seafood for fishing. So they're living in structures that will be made out of wood since trees are a very abundant natural resource for them. And here is an example of a Native American longhouse on the Pacific Northwest coast. As you can see, the structure is made out of wood, and here you can see fish painted on it, which should demonstrate how important fishing was to the people of this region. Okay, so once again, we are taking notes on the Northwest coastal region. So go ahead and pause this and get this written down. So the people here were hunters, mostly for bear. Fishing was very important, and the abundance of forest meant that they made their homes out of wood, and these homes were called longhouses. Okay, so next we are going to look at the Great Basin and Plateau regions, and they are located right here on your map. And this is what the terrain of the area looks like. So this is the area east of California, so between the Sierra Nevadas and the Rocky Mountains. And since the mountain ranges block the rain, the region is mostly a desert, so they don't get a lot of rain there. They have very hot summers, cold winters, and the Native Americans in this area had to migrate for food. So they have to go wherever the food is. They would eat seeds, grasshoppers, and rabbits, whatever there was in the desert. So, living in the Great Basin, you had a limited amount of food and water, which meant only a few families could live in a place at any given time. And this is why the people of this region would travel in small groups and spend much of their time looking for food. So, they would scavenge areas looking around to survive instead of staying in just one place. Okay, so you know what to do. Stop this podcast and fill in the notes on the Great Basin and Plateau regions. Okay, and for the Southwest, which is right here, which would include today's states of Arizona, New Mexico, southern Utah, and Colorado, and also part of the country of Mexico. So this is a pretty big area and has many different environments. So there's canyons, mountains, deserts, flat topped mesas, which you see right here. There's two major rivers in the southwest, the Colorado River, which runs through the Grand Canyon, and the Rio Grande, which is the border between Mexico and Texas. So the heat and lack of rain and water made living here a challenge. So it's going to be a very desert type of place. And so Native Americans would be nomadic, which meant they're going to move around from place to place. So they're hunter gatherers, so they'll have to go and find their food. In some areas, they would grow corn and cotton, and they would create clothing from the cotton. And some tribes lived in the cliffs, and that's where they would stay. And they had clay pots and adobes would be their homes as well. So in different parts of the Southwest, which is a huge area, different Native Americans would live there in different ways. And this is an example of the cliff dwellings that I was just talking about. So you can see the living structures made out of the side of cliffs right there. And this is an example of a cliff palace. So as you can see, Native Americans would make their homes out of the sides of cliffs. So you can see how their lifestyle was very much adapted to their surroundings. Okay, so here you go. We're filling in information on the Southwest. So stop it here and get the notes down. Okay, so for the Great Plains, which is what we call the Midwest of the United States, because as you can see on your map here, it's located in the middle part of America. This is going to be the area between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. So this is a very large area, and the eastern part is very wet, and the western part has large grasslands, which is really good for millions of buffalo to graze on. And buffalo was used in every part of life for Native Americans in this region. So the Great Plains, Native Americans would hunt the buffalo, and once the Spanish start colonizing America, they'll introduce horses to the Americas, and this will allow tribes to be more mobile and to get to the buffalo quicker. So as you can see here, this is a Plains Indian hunting bison or buffalo, and the introduction of the horse to the Americas completely changed the way of life and made hunting buffalo much easier for Native Americans. Plains Native Americans lived a nomadic lifestyle, or one where they moved about because they followed the buffalo migration. They used buffalo hide to make the teepees you see here, and they lived in teepees while they were hunting. This was not their permanent homes. Okay, so here you go. Press pause and fill in the information that you need for the Native Americans that lived in the Great Plains. Okay, so the Eastern Woodlands, which is located in the northeastern part of the United States, as you can see here on your map. So this region reaches all the way to the Mississippi River at its westernmost point and all the way to the Atlantic Ocean on its most eastern point. And up north from Canada to about North Carolina to its most southern point. So in the winter it snows, and in the summer it rains a lot. So it produces lots of forest, and they have lots of lakes and streams. And so for the Native Americans that lived in this area, this region is going to be home to deer, beavers, and other wildlife that would serve as a food source as well as being a source of clothing. Some of the major tribes are going to be the Iroquois and the Algonquian, and they would use sunflowers, tobacco, squash, corn, maple syrup, nuts, and berries for their survival. So tribes in this region lived in longhouses. These structures were very large and could house several families. They were made of wood, which is an abundant natural resource in this area. So again, you can see how this is an adaptation to the environment. Okay, and you know what to do. Hit pause and get the information you need on the Northeast tribes. Okay, and for the Southeast, which is the last region we're going to be talking about today, so the Native Americans from the Southeast would be from Texas to the Atlantic Ocean. This area has very fertile plains that will flood periodically, and this area has really nutrient-rich soil. It also has river valleys, mountains, and swamps. So they have large, warm, humid summers and very mild winters. This produces a long growing season, so they can produce abundant crops throughout much of the year. So they'll grow corn, pumpkin, squash, beans, sweet potatoes, wild rice, persimmons, all in this region. They had turkey as well, and they were mound builders, so they would build their houses out of dirt and different surroundings in the environment. And this is an example of the mounds that were built in this region. The mounds could have a number of different purposes. They could be used as burial sites or for religious reasons, for example. And here you go, last one. Native Americans of the Southeast. Press pause and fill in your information. Okay, so there you have it. Native American cultures prior to European exploration. So we looked at a number of different geographic regions and focused on how tribes of each region adapted their lifestyle to their environment. Each environment provided unique challenges, and tribes lived a lifestyle that would help them survive those challenges. I hope this helped. If not, you should try watching it again. And if you still feel like you're missing something, write down your questions to ask in class or schedule a time to talk to me. Have a great day.